Thank you.
Yes.
Here at 6 p.m. I'll call this meeting of the Common Council to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Proceed next to roll call, Clerk Treasurer Aldridge.
Carolyn Pearson. Richard Traeger.
Present.
Brian Garrison.
Present.
Dale Seward. Mike Shopton.
Present. Move next to minutes. We have the minutes from September 4th, 2018. Any additions, subtractions, deletions, or amendments to be made to this set of minutes?
Move for approval of the minutes of September 4th.
Second. A motion and a second for the September 4th minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move next to the September 24th special meeting. Any additions, subtractions, deletions, or amendments?
I move for acceptance of the September 24th minutes.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move next to written and oral reports from committees, boards, commissions, and departments. Chief, we want to start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. As you have my report in front of you, I think everybody has a copy of my report. The miles driven this month were 5,636, 30 case reports, 14 citations, 6 warnings, 4 crash reports, 10 parking tickets, and 2 handgun licenses. Your news releases are attached, and so with call for services, arrests, everything's listed there. The DARE program's underway at the Delphi Elementary School. Graduation is scheduled for December 11th at 8:30 a.m. It'd be nice if anyone wanted to come from the council to see what happens. So, does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you.
Street Department.
I just have a couple things. We spent a month doing concrete work. That's been completed. So we had 10 participants. So all the dirt work and concrete's been done on that. The storm line on Wabash Street has been completed with the exception of the asphalt. And the asphalt should be completed next month. The contractor is stating either the first to the middle part of next month unless something frees up and they can get in here sooner and get that street paved. And then next week we'll be starting leaves, unfortunately.
All the walks and everything are done?
Yes, the walks are done, dirt work's done. We're still patching some curb and some alley approaches. We did some of that today. If the weather holds out, we should have that done in the next day or two. And then we'll be on the leaves and buttoning things up.
Thank you. Any further questions, Superintendent Lyons?
No.
All right, thank you, sir. Superintendent Myers?
I don't have much to add to the report other than this one's $29,624,000. IPC used $23,986,000. Peerless and West did finish up the telemetry of well 3. That's about it. Other than my report.
Any questions for the superintendent? All right, thank you, sir. Superintendent Van Sickle?
I really don't have much. It was a quiet month, luckily. About the only thing of interest, we had a power outage. It affected State Road 39 lift station, but by the time we got our pump and hoses out there, power was restored. So we're lucky. Questions? Ask me a question. I really don't have anything else to say to this.
Is force main under Deer Creek done? Was it done like months ago? Force main under Deer Creek?
Yes. What about it?
Is it done?
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, and you're fine. I mean, the aggregates stay in place. The water's come up a couple of times, but not bad, so yeah, it's fine.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Thank you, sir. Much to add, community crossings application has been submitted. We should hear back in late October, early November. We had a mandatory pre-response meeting for the guaranteed savings contract. That was last week. I believe they have to submit their proposals by October 19th with tentative selection by November 1st. And Delphi Oracles are 7-0 for the first time in decades. They take on the 6-1 Cavaliers at 7 p.m. this Friday, so should be a good game. You guys have any questions for me?
What is WHIN?
Wabash Heartland Innovation Network.
What is that?
It's I believe a 10-county region, maybe a 9-county region that got, I think, $40 million to work on. They want to make that region, trying to think of their catchphrase or motto, it's the innovative agriculture region of the world. So they're focusing on broadband's one of their components, workforce development, but bringing agricultural technologies to fruition. So their new CEO was a developer of agricultural related technologies. Information of things is what they call it. But they were in town, they were talking about broadband. There's a group from Clinton, Carroll, and White counties that have been talking about broadband for a couple months now, trying to partner for some grant opportunities or some funding through Clinton.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Clerk Treasurer Aldridge? All right. Moving next to Area Plan Commission, Councilman Seward.
Only really two things on the agenda that were of any interest. One was a continued discussion of the CAFO changes, potential changes, and then also a rezone application, which the filer of that did not show up, so we did not deal with it, but it's a rezone in West Delphi for, and I didn't know they were out of business or closed down, but Dad's Auto Repair is no longer in business according to what I've been told, and it's a rezone to make that residential as opposed to business. So that's all we dealt with.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Councilman Seward? Councilman Shockley, Community Center updates?
Councilman Stewart can answer that better than I can.
Councilman Seward?
He's,
I have-
with the concrete company. That's
We're waiting on stone to arrive. I'm not sure what the delay is on that. I've been asking, but I think people are trying to get wrapped up with their own projects before the end of the good weather, and it's gone on longer than what I'd like to see it go on, and I'm going to push for that to get done as quickly as possible. That needs to be done.
Any other comments about the community center? So we'll move into old business, which is proposed ordinance 2018-14, read by title only, an ordinance of the city of Delphi authorizing the issuance of waterworks revenue bonds for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of certain additions, extensions, and improvements to the municipal waterworks of said city, providing for the safeguarding of the interest of the owners of said bonds, other matters connected therewith, including the issuance of notes and anticipated bonds, and repealing ordinances inconsistent therewith. If Patty writes us an ordinance again, we're getting her a short title.
Fair enough.
I will open the public hearing at 6:08 p.m. I'll first ask, we've got Eric Walsh of Umball to provide an explanation of the rate study and the rate ordinance. I know this isn't what the public hearing's on, but they're intrinsically linked. So Mr. Walsh, I'll give you the floor to talk about the rate study. We discussed it briefly last week, 42.5 to 7.59%. But if you could give a summary of that, answer some questions, and then we'll open it up for discussion.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Eric Walsh, partner with Umball Associates. I know you're seeing John Julian from our office, but he had conflicts tonight, so I'm here in his place. As you're going through the bond ordinance, it sets out the parameters for issuing the debt. You have really two phases of a project. The rate study and rate ordinance that you'll have a hearing on, I believe, October 8th, is the culmination of phase one of that study, the borrowing of approximately 6.5 million, just over $6.5 million is the current estimate. That would be through the SRF pool program, state revolving fund. I think you're all probably familiar if you've talked through this already. That's where the state of Indiana, through the SRF program, or Indiana Finance Authority, uses their AAA credit rating and borrows money on the open market and then lends it to sublenders such as yourself. The rate increase of approximately 42.6% that the mayor alluded to is based on that borrowing over 35 years through the state revolving fund. The current estimated interest rate that we're using is 3.25% over that 35-year period. And there's several other borrowers. I'm working with several, as well as our firm's working with several other ones. The last we heard, we think that's going to get priced by the state probably early to the mid of this month. So we should know within a few weeks what the final interest rate is going to be on that.
Anything further?
Any other questions for me?
What was the borrowing amount?
$6,520,000 is phase one. What you'll notice is the bond ordinance that you're looking at here authorizes approximately $14.5 million in total project cost. That authorizes both phases, but we're only setting the rates for the first phase at this point.
So the second phase could come in at 3.25% also?
It would depend on what kind of offering at that time SRF would provide you. There'd be the opportunity for a traditional loan with SRF, which is actually lower interest rates right now where we sit today, or if there's not enough funding in that, you probably have the opportunity again for the pool funding. They make that decision annually based on the applicants.
We were in a couple of the other meetings, it was 4%. Why did it go down to 3.25 when everything else is going up?
I think the original estimates, and I apologize, I wasn't intimately involved with it, were probably just estimates on the beginning, trying to be high and conservative with it. We found out probably about a month ago, SRF told us use 3.25% for planning purposes. That's not a final rate though. They're hoping they're even still high on that and actually price is something lower than 3.25%. And again, we should know that within probably 2 weeks here when SRF prices their funds.
So for the phase two, will we get in early on that to hopefully be in a better position?
That depends on how you guys go forward with that application. Again, every year SRF has an application process and they distribute their funds on both drinking water and wastewater. They have so much funding available from the federal government, and however many applicants they get, they score you on what's called a project priority list. So if you get in early, so to speak, that enhances your chances, but if other people score higher on that PPL, you still may not get the traditional funding. There's some years, for instance, last year on drinking water, they were trying to get rid of money because there wasn't that many applicants. This year is just a pretty heavily competitive year for both drinking water and sewage, both.
I do have a question. So for phase one, proposed bond issue, I know the total project cost is at $6.54 million. Do you have the rate study in front of you?
Yes.
On page 9 below that, I believe they incorporated some of the soft costs from phase 2 into the phase 1 bond
Correct.
issue. So the actual bond issue would be $7.42 million for phase 1.
You're right, Mayor. I apologize. You are correct. 7.42 would be the total bond issue on phase 1 because they incorporated $900,000 of engineering and other design costs. I apologize. The other piece to that is too, I should have mentioned, and I assume John spoke with you all about this, the requirement for an asset management plan. You're all familiar with that through the SRF program.
Yeah,
And there's
new this year.
some grant funding that's going to be available for it, about $25,000 as well. New requirement.
Does anybody know what our bond rating is as a city?
I can probably look it up here if you guys do have one in about 10 minutes if you get a chance.
So you say 6,520,000, you're saying 6,540,000, but the total is 7,420,000 then?
I apologize. The mayor's correct. The $6,520,000 is the project-related piece of phase 1, but there's another $900,000 of engineering and other soft costs that's prepping for phase 2 that's also being borrowed in this first phase. So the total borrowing estimated is $7,420,000.
Now, with those numbers and everything like that, borrowing $7,420,000, how much over that, by the time 35 years gets here, how much will we have paid back with principal and interest, do you know?
If you pay, if the rate comes in at 3.25, which we're estimating now, your total payments over the 35 years would be approximately $12,450,000. So that'd be approximately just over $5 million of interest over a 35-year period.
What was your total again, 12-1?
$12,450,000.
You said that, average rate hike will be 42.6%?
42.59% is the exact one that was in the September rate study.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir,
you sent me a letter saying my bill would go from 58 to 94.
said based on the estimates that we had at the time, after 2 phases of 135% total, which is based off of that was 4% interest on the 35-year and a 2% on the 20 traditional for the second phase. That was the estimates at the time. That was the best estimates that we had.
Right. This is only phase one that we're.
All right, so the 42.6 is what the phase one increase will be.
Okay. Because I was gonna say it was over 50% if they went from 58 to 94, it's about a $38 increase, which is over 50% of my bill.
And you said Mayor, I'm not familiar with this, but that was had both
That's
phases.
about 80%.
Correct.
Okay.
So that we used the 135%, which is based off 4% at 35 years, 2% at 20 years, about a 50-50 split on the phasing.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions for Mr. Walsh? We'll open up for questions and comments from the public. I mean, it's been. This is a public hearing. Yes, ma'am.
I have some questions. Why are you incorporating $900,000 of soft costs for phase 2 into phase 1 that you just mentioned?
So we can get it designed beforehand.
The design?
Correct. So we don't have to borrow money to do the engineering.
Okay. And I don't know that I ever heard that it was shared in a meeting. Why was our original request for the almost 14 million denied by SRF? What was
That goes back to the PPL.
Yeah, I wouldn't categorize it as denied. I would categorize it as everyone that submits an application, they rank all those
Right.
communities, and you all just didn't rank as high enough to get any of the funding
The
from that.
PPL.
Yeah, and there's certain characteristics, things like median household income, what your current rates are compared to where they're gonna be based on the rate increase, and a plethora of other things that they score that based on.
So how do you see those same qualifiers affecting us this time around?
I really wouldn't focus as much, when you say phase 2, I wouldn't focus as much on your qualifiers. Your score is gonna be what it's gonna be. It really depends on how much money do they have to loan and who else applies at that point. You're not really gonna change your factors much. It's gonna be pretty similar in a couple of years where you are now.
So what, in a timeline, when will we know if we're on the PPL?
When are you guys planning on phase 2? Apologize for,
We're probably applying 19.
so you apply at 19, you get scored, the
Can
PPL.
we know for this phase, for phase 1? When will
Oh, we already
Oh,
got
it's already done.
Yeah, we
Phase
were,
one,
we
you're already
were below
scored.
the,
You're below the funding level for traditional funding for this phase. That's why we're doing the pool program, not the traditional. You didn't score high enough.
So when will we actually know if we are going to receive funds
For this phase or for phase 2?
for phase 1?
For phase 1, you're already, SRF is already obligated, they'll borrow the money and loan it to you.
They're going to loan us?
Yeah, it's already said and done. They're gonna price and borrow that money probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
You know, part of the reason for that was said at a meeting was because our rates were already so low.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said first.
They mentioned this at a meeting, like maybe it was the one at the fire station. But when they first told us that we didn't qualify for the traditional SRF, they said part of the reason we didn't get the traditional was because our rates were already
Our water
lower
rates,
than
okay.
most communities.
Yep, that's one of the scoring indicators, what your impact is on a 4,000 gallon per month customer's bill compared to others.
I just have one more question. Did you have a meeting with IPC representatives
It's scheduled for next week.
before or after the meeting next week?
Probably after.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're saying we're guaranteed to have this money?
Yes, but we aren't guaranteed to take it until we're done with all 3 readings. So we had to tell SRF, or Indiana Finance Authority, whoever's the overseeing agency, that we are interested in these bond funds, with the caveat that if we ask for them and we don't want them, and we don't approve in all 3 readings the rate of the bond ordinance, I believe it's that we can't apply for funds in 2019.
Correct. So if they do not adopt the rate order, the bond ordinance tonight, the rate ordinance on is the 8th, SRF will basically not fund, or you can back out of that funding, but they're holding that funding right now for you, or planning to fund the city.
Public comment.
So you're saying the first round is gonna be 42%, whatever. What's the second round gonna be?
That will depend on the rate study, and I think what John had indicated is that the rate study would be a little more in-depth based off of user type.
Yeah, there's a number, I won't say largest factor, but probably one of the largest factors will be, as the mayor alluded to, at phase 2, if you're going for funding in 2019, that PPL comes out in usually the end of June, early July of 2019. If you get in the traditional funding range, I'm going to give you an example of this year. I don't know where it'll be next year, but this year, the traditional funding range was 2% versus the 3.25%. So that, obviously, the lower you can borrow the money, the lower the
And
rate.
it's for 20 years, not 35, correct?
That is for 20. They are allowing, though, depending on certain types of the projects, if it's pipe related, that you can extend it up to 35 years. So there may be pieces of your project that could qualify.
So this overall percentage is still gonna be 135%?
Not
Or is it gonna be lower?
Based off the estimates, we ran at 4%, so based off the estimates that we have currently, it would be lower than 135%.
Can you give me a ballpark of where it'll be?
I cannot. And I don't know if John's ran those or if you ran those, Eric.
I don't have them with me. If he has, I apologize. I don't have anything more than, I guess, the last time I was here for him, whatever we talked about at that meeting at the canal.
As far as the acquisition of funds for phase 2, I don't know if you looked at the State Board of Accounts supplemental compliance report, but they use some language in there that I don't necessarily agree with. Some of it's kind of scary. Will that have an effect on being able to get funding for that second phase?
You're talking about your last audit. I'm
Yes.
not familiar with what that language was.
Here it is. I don't answer it tonight. I mean,
Sure.
obviously you've not seen the document, but I'm just kind of interested if that would have any detrimental effect on us getting finance on phase 2.
And do you care if we kind of look through this and respond?
Take it.
The one, and I'm not sure exactly what comments are in here, I will say, when you're a borrower of SRF, the main components that they look at are, one, are you funding what they call your sinking fund regular? That's where the clerk treasurer makes monthly transfers into they use the bank in New York. You put money there, and then every 6 months your payment comes out of that account.
Okay.
And also funding your debt service reserve, which takes monthly transfers and gets funded usually over a 5-year period. And then you have to hold that chunk of money until the bonds are paid off. Where SRF will get skittish, so to speak, loaning money again, is if you're not making those transfers timely to them. I've seen where they've basically not allowed borrowers to come back if you're in essence not sending your money on time to them. Yeah.
We're probably okay.
We can look through this and get a response.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question someone asked me to ask. The letter that you sent out that had the 135%, whether it's gonna be lower than that or stay at that, the first part of that billing is gonna be implemented for a December bill?
I
Is that-
believe the rate effect, or the rate ordinance would take effect October 8th, when it takes effect after it's passed and I sign it, which should be October 8th or October 9th. It depends on when we can change the numbers in the system, is how I understood it.
Yeah, the soonest you could have it effective is the first full billing cycle after adopted. I'm not sure what your billing cycle is, but
15th.
15th to 15th, so the soonest that you could do it is for the billing, that would be to the 15th on, what, November, that first full month, and then I don't know when your bills are due.
So the bill that we would be paying in December for the November, or the bill we'd be paying in January for the December?
It may be the bill in November for October, depending on how quickly we can get numbers
Okay,
switched.
and then the other question was, since it's only going up that smaller percentage now, so 42% or whatever it is now, the next increase, is that based on the baseline, what we started out at? Like mine, 856 a month. You're attacking on the 42%. And then is the next chunk of increase based on my new rate of $12 and something, or is it based on that $8? Does that make sense? Because when they asked me, I was like, you're gonna have to say that one more time, because I wanted to make sure I was getting it.
Both,
Both.
because they're proportional. 42% of your original plus another certain percentage, whatever that is going to be the same as a total of this percentage from what it was before. So the 135% was based off of now.
Okay.
That was our estimate, 135% total after both phases.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be 42.6% plus another 135.
Okay.
It'd be 135% of what you are now, what we were looking at.
Yeah, I can't stress enough, there'll be a rate study done after you issue these bonds, and what we know you're going to get from SRF in 2019, as well as what the mayor alluded to. Sounds like John probably was talking about a cost of service analysis where you look at different classes of customers and who's driving cost versus who isn't, and maybe allocating the cost a little bit differently to different customer classes too. So I would just say that's definitely just a ballpark, and until the full study's done, I wouldn't lock into that.
Other comments?
Is there been a cap set for contingencies on this first phase project? I've heard that in some of the different public meetings, and don't forget contingencies, and don't forget contingencies. Is there a cap for what can be charged for contingencies from an engineering firm, a production, a drilling company?
I believe it's 10%. SRF doesn't like to see contingency any higher than 10%.
I'm sorry?
10%.
10%.
Correct.
We've seen as high as 49%. So is that?
Well, that included, I think it was 47.5% included soft cost, market escalation, and contingency.
And the other piece, this isn't an exact answer, but the other thing to remember, the bond ordinance you have in front of you tonight caps the bond issue size at $14,475,000 for both phases. That's what your rate study was based on, with the contingency of approximately $500,000 in it. So unless you adopted an amendment to be able to borrow more than that, you're kind of capped at that as your maximum project anyway. No, it doesn't, but you're kind of capping what you can borrow. So if contingency comes in higher, it's not like you can say, oh, we need more money, we need to borrow more. You have to go through this process again to have the ability to borrow more.
Any other public comments? Going once? Close the public hearing. It is 6:28 p.m. Is there a motion to pass proposed ordinance 2018-14 on third and final reading?
I'll make a motion to pass 2018-14 on ordinance on third reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? I'll call the question as to the passage of proposed ordinance 2018-14 on third and final reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Move next to proposed ordinance 2018-15, read by title only, an ordinance approving, adopting, authorizing a change in the schedule of rates and charges of the City of Delphi, Indiana municipal water utility. This is the second reading of proposed ordinance 2018-15. There will be a public hearing on this next week at 5:30 p.m. This and the budget, so maybe a little after 5:30. But is there discussion of the proposed ordinance 2018-15? Is there a motion to pass proposed ordinance 2018-15 on second reading?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any further discussion regarding proposed ordinance 2018-15? I'll call the question as to the passage of proposed ordinance 2018-15 on second reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. That's all I've got for tonight. Next meeting will be Monday at 5:30 p.m. We will have public hearing and third reading on the rate ordinance. We will have public hearing on the 2019 budget, and the 2019 wages and salaries will also be up for third reading. We'll move next to council comments and requests. President Pro Tem Pearson. Councilman Trick?
None.
Councilman Shockley?
No.
Councilman Seward?
No.
Councilman Garrison?
Nothing.
All right. Clerk Treasurer Aldrich?
Nothing.
Public comments.
Someone had asked what your last rating was. Your 2015 water bonds, you did a refund, you got a rating from Standard & Poor's of an A- on those bonds.
A minus. What's that, break that down for me. I don't know what's top.
So you go, a AAA is what you're gonna, basically the state's gonna borrow this money at. So to get to an A-, you're, have to look through, you could go from a AAA to basically a AA plus, a AA, a AA-, single A plus, single A, A-, so how many levels that is below. BAA or above is what we call kind of investable grade debt. BAA and below would be kind of what you term junk bonds. So you're higher than that, you're an A-. It's a typical rating for a community your size.
Really?
Any further public comment? So one last motion to be made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is 6:32.
Very good.
Yes. You got the bond ordinance, I think.